Hey everyone, Urban Fish Keeper here. I hope you're all doing well and you've had a good week and you're having an awesome weekend. So last weekend's video was a long one. I think it was 40 odd minutes. So I'm going to make sure that this weekend is a short video, not one that you have to sit and listen to me for almost an hour. But I hope you enjoyed that project. I enjoyed making it. Today I'm going to talk about a little bit of breeding again. In particular, I want to talk about Neolamprologus or Lagus, I think however it's pronounced, Brichardi. I've always known it as Brichardi or the Brichardi cichlid. A lot of people refer to it as the Lyretail cichlid. Now, if you have a look at this video, this is the particular fish that I'm talking about. And in this tank there's 3 of them. And you can also see there's a couple of fry swimming around on the bottom. Now, what's interesting about this particular cichlid and why I like them, and it's the only Tanganyikan that I've got in my room at the moment, it's one of those cichlids that when you put it in the aquarium, you let them do their thing, they start breeding, and then they become community raisers as such. So everybody looks after the babies and so they grow up. Now, the challenge with them is, one is you want to get them to spawn, which is normally not too much of an issue. The other thing is you want to get a pair. Now, just a little bit of background on them. They're sitting in this tank here at the moment. A little bit of background on them is they come from Lake Tanganyika. That in itself implies that they like really hard water, and temperature not too high. So from a parameters point of view, pH you want about between 8 and 9 pH. Water temperature probably around about 24, 25, anywhere between the 24 to 26 mark. And filtration, as you can see, I'm running it on 2 sponge filters. Now when it comes to the pH could be a challenge, and what I don't like doing is I don't like doctoring my water or adding things to my water in order to keep the pH at a certain level. The reason I don't like doing it is it means every time I do a water change, I need to get the water to the same parameter. And as you know, I keep a couple of buckets here of aged water. When I do a water change, I just do the water change. I don't add anything to change pH or anything to it. So the way I overcome that is, in order to buffer the water so that the pH doesn't drop too low, I use, and you can see in the bottom of this, and you can also see it on the video that I inserted, I use coral sand. So if you were setting up a marine aquarium and you went and bought a substrate for your marine aquarium, you'd more than likely buy coral sand. So I just buy a coral sand and I leave that in, and that helps to buffer. The other thing is they like structure. Like most of your cichlids like a bit of structure, especially from the Great Lakes. What I've got in there, I've got a piece of Texas rock. It's got a whole lot of holes in it, and they've basically dug out underneath that whole rock and landscaped the inside of the aquarium the way they like it. Now when it comes to selecting or getting a pair, if you're fortunate enough and you're going to a pet store and you find a pair that you can visibly see it's a pair, the male looks bigger, his fins are a little bit longer and so forth, then that's great. But a lot of the time you're going to go into a store, they're going to have a tank with maybe, I don't know, 20 or 30 of them in. They'll have no rocks or no structure in there to prevent any fighting or major fighting. And then it's a question of you just have to pick by eye. What I do in that case, and is exactly what I did, is I went out and I bought a few of them and I put them in this tank. The tank that I'm running is just one of my cubes, holds 64 liters, so it's probably 50 liters or 55 liters of water in there. I bought a few of them and I popped them in that tank. Now they came out of the same group, so my original thinking was that they should be okay and there shouldn't be any major bullying. But as soon as I put the rock in and structure was there for them to start finding territory, immediately domination started in the aquarium. And even though I have got a glass top on this, I came in and found not one but multiple of them, of the Brichardi, had actually being chased and it jumped out of the back corners of the tank, and that's why I have these little nets here just over the corners. Anyway, once that process had taken down, had happened, they settled down, and at the moment there I've got 3. My thinking is that I've probably got 2 females and a male that has now made up that trio in there. And breeding is obviously fine because, as you would have seen in the video, there's a couple of youngsters swimming around in there. So all I now do is I just feed brine. I feed them as per normal, and then I feed brine shrimp to the fry. I just squirt in some brine shrimp in the evenings. Now, from a feeding point of view, in the lakes that they come from, they would naturally eat on things like plankton and little crustaceans and so forth. So what I do is my feeding for them is they do get a dry food as well, a little pellet, the DRP pellet in actual fact, and then they also get frozen brine shrimp. They also get live. When I feed the babies, they get live brine shrimp, newly hatched brine shrimp as well. So that's generally their diet. From a water change point of view, you know, my normal routine, once every, at the moment I haven't been doing a hell of a lot, maybe once every 4 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the tank. Discus maybe more often, but the Brichardi not that often, probably every 2-3 weeks or so. Other than that, they're quite a straightforward fish to keep, and the nice thing about them is that once they start breeding and you start having these little fry swimming around in the tank, the process just keeps on going and going. So they'll breed again, and these youngsters will grow up, and the next lot will start growing up, and eventually you have an aquarium that's full of different sizes of these cichlids. And I think they're stunning cichlids, I really do. In a big aquarium, they're great when you've got a whole lot of them, a lot of structure, and you just put a whole lot of Tanganyikans in. Now, I'm not too sure whether, you know, what the substrate and the sand and stuff in Lake Tanganyika looks like. But I've gone with a coral sand for the bottom. Now, I am fortunate that I have gone to Lake Malawi, and I've been able to spend some time there and see the environment and the habitat and, you know, what the fish live in. But these are 2 very different lakes, so I couldn't base my setup of what I was trying to achieve in this for the Tanganyikans based on my experience from having been to Lake Malawi, and having spent time before he passed away with Stuart Grant at his station on the lake, from where they bring all the fish in. They keep them in there, and that's where they get boxed and sent out all over the world. Well, back then they were anyway. So I had an opportunity to see how that all works, and spend some time in the lake and on the lake and down south, and see what the environment. And what I learned from that, not that this has got anything to do with the Tanganyikans, what I did learn from that though is what we think as hobbyists and aquarists, what the inside of an aquarium should look like for a particular type of fish, is very different from what actually you see in a lake. So, you know, I've gone with the coral sand to buffer, to keep the pH, you know, reasonably high, because they come from Lake Tanganyika. But, you know, it probably would be similar to what I saw in Lake Malawi, where, you know, it's not clean white sands at the bottom of the lake. It's, you know, it's silt, it's round boulders, it's that kind of environment. You know, maybe Lake Tanganyika has a similar look to it, but I don't know. Anyway, guys, so we've gone through feeding, water temperature, pH, straightforward. Your challenge is just initially either getting a pair, or when you put a group in, that they don't, once they structure, that the dominance doesn't start and they kill off the other ones. To overcome that, it's really a size of aquarium. If you go with a really large aquarium, you put in a group, then there's space and you can have multiple structures all over your aquarium, then it's fine. You know, you'll have groups or pockets forming, and if you've got other Tanganyikans in there, you know, then it's fine. But in a small aquarium like I'm doing here, you know, call it 60 liters or whatever, you're going to get dominance, you're going to get a trio or pair settling, and that's it, and then from there it will grow. So yeah, great fish. You know, to me, Brichardi is like the shell dwellers. you put them in, you leave them, and they do their own thing, and they're really fascinating to watch and see the youngsters grow up, and it just becomes like a whole communal fish tank of the same, and brothers and sisters looking after brothers and sisters, and it just keeps on growing from there. Anyway, guys, that's it for today. I just wanted to give you a quick rundown on Brichardi and how I breed them, and it's really, you know, I put them in a tank and I leave them to do their thing, give them some structure, and that's important, give them some structure. The only thing I will say though is if you're using something like the Texas rock, make sure you put some batting or something underneath the rock, because you're guaranteed that they're going to dig out underneath it and create little tunnels and everything underneath the rock, because that's where they spawn up against the side of the rock or underneath the structure. So they're going to dig all the sand out, and you don't necessarily want something like Texas rock, which is extremely heavy, sitting on your glass base with any, you know, sand or coral sand like I've got between the rock and the glass base. It could cause it to crack. So make sure that you put something underneath there from a safety point of view. Other than that, straightforward, really an interesting fish. One of my favorites when it comes to the Tanganyikans, them and the shell dwellers, I really love those. So we'll leave this for a while now. We'll see how the group grows and expands, and then we'll get to a point where we'll move them on. The other thing is, I will say that at one stage, every shop had them, probably about a year and a half ago. Now you struggle to find them anywhere. So if you see them around, you have the opportunity. They are really great fish. I wouldn't put them in a community tank with tetras and those kind of things. Their water conditions are very different. Their temperature is very different. They're suited for a hard water tank. You know, either a Tanganyikan only tank, or a, you know, fish from the lakes, that African lakes where water chemistry and that is a bit similar. So anyway, that's it, guys. Have a awesome weekend further. Have a good week ahead. Take it easy, be safe, look after yourselves. Till the next video, Urban Fish Keeper out.